Please welcome for the presentation of the technological process of 2020. We would like to salute those of you who are here with us and remotely through the video platform. Here we have the presence of ministers, presidents of the National Logistical Committee, authorities of the High Commander of the Bolivarian Armed Forces, representatives of the diplomatic community in Venezuela, representatives of 29 organizations, political organizations, as well as indigenous organizations that will participate in the elections for deputies to the National Assembly of 2020. We would also like to thank the presence of the staff of the media, public and private media of Venezuela. Remotely, we have the connection of more than 300 people, both nationally and internationally, including electoral technicians with international and national rectors of public and private universities of the countries, representatives of different churches that are present in our country, heads of operational zones of integral defense, heads of the regional electoral offices, and high academic studies of the state. We are all connected in this video conference with this strategic operational center of the National Electoral Council, which will be at your service to provide the activities of the electoral timetable, thus guaranteeing each and all of the biosanitary conditions for the protection of the health of our people fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of the Rector and President of the National Electoral Council, Dr. Indira Maira Alfonzo Izaguirre, you give her the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, Venezuela. Good morning, each and every one of you. Also, the people that have accepted our invitation and are currently connected, not only nationally, but internationally. We would like to say that on behalf of the electoral branch and on behalf of the rectors, and on my behalf, we would like to extend our warmest salutation. Also to the diplomatic corps, the electoral experts, members of the media, and especially the political organizations. Welcome you all. We are joined by people in person and remotely within the framework of the election of the deputies to the National Assembly for the 2020-2026 term, as established by the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Venezuelan laws. Likewise, I would like to express our gratitude to the members of the National Logistics Committee, a unit that was activated on July 11th, as it's usual, in response to the needs of coordination in real time of each and every one of the institutions of the Venezuelan state to consolidate the democratic path and to guarantee the efficiency of the elections that we have called. We want to express our gratitude to each one of you because your effort will define the success of the mission we have ahead. The objective of this meeting is to get familiar with the technological solution that is going to be the core of this election, and there is an expression of our robust electoral system. From 1997, a reform of the technological platform started, and at this moment we can say that the historical, social, economic context of our country, also affected by the pandemic, regardless of this situation, we have the conditions to guarantee free and fair elections. And the technological progress is going to guarantee a reliable election. Within the framework of these elections, we have called upon for December the 6th. On December the 1st, 2020, this board of rectors that have been sitting, conducting sessions, had a first contact with this technological solution we have the pleasure to present at this moment. This is a system that is going to be easily understood by the voters and that meets the requirements of protection of health. And we will see the characteristics and technical specification of this technological solution in order to listen the rector, Carlos Quintero, on behalf of the National Electoral Board, who will provide details to let us know how these voting machines work. So we're going to inform you now about the news of this electoral commission and carry out a practice for you to see this information in first hand and be able to spread the word. And also we'll have people providing the electoral service following the mandate of the Constitution. And the group of audits will guarantee the transparency of the democratic process that will take place on December the 6th, when the citizens will have the chance to vote for a new parliament. This is time to express the freedom of the sovereign will of the Venezuelan people. It's time to elect. We welcome you all. We have the machine. We have the electoral horseshoe, everything within the context of the biosecurity measures we have implemented for this electoral process. Thank you.
We thank the message of the President of the National Electoral Council, Mrs. Indira Alfonzo, for this new solution, technological solution. Next, we would like to invite you all to make a tour around the different stages of the voting process in Venezuela. Do you know the story of voting in Venezuela? As of 1946, vote is direct, universal, and secret, thus ensuring the participation of everyone. Until 1997, it is exercised through a card. The scrutiny is made manually, and the results are done. In 1998, the card goes into a machine that accelerates the process. In 2004, we reached the automatization. Venezuela was the first country to use the machine with the voting receipt. Now we have a reliable system. The process is totally automized, safe, and 100% auditable, thus guaranteeing your right to vote. The CNE, the time for elections. And it is that in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, it's time for election. That is why it's time to present to the Venezuelan people and to the world the technological solution, the technological electronic solution. Next, we would like to invite you to learn about the technical aspects and the strengths of this new instrument for the service of the people and of the Venezuelan democracy. Operational system that is quite simple, agile, functional, and reliable. High resolution screen, a large high resolution screen that facilitates the selection, an integrated printer, high speed of printing of the voting receipt, an integrated battery, which warranties a total electrical independence for the functioning of the voting machine. Integrated sound. designed to assist the participation of voters with disabilities. Integrated voting system linked to the integrated authenticated system, which guarantees the voter a vote activated through the biometric authentication system, a safe transmission that is auditable and reliable. The automized voting system counts with the technical support of an armored and safe process that is isolated from the internet, rapidity and accuracy in the presentation of electoral results. A few hours after the closure of all the stations, we totalize and represent the final results of the entire country. Automated voting. When you press vote, the machine will print the voting receipt, thus guaranteeing the reliability and transparency of the voting system, the automated voting system of Venezuela. In Venezuela, 100% of the polling stations are automized. In every polling center, we deploy the electoral equipment that are necessary so that every voter is able to cast their vote. These are democratic principles. The new electoral technology was developed with the purpose to facilitate the accomplishment of the principles of democracy, transparency, celerity, and efficiency. CNE, it's time to elect. Next, we are going to present the exhibition by the National Electoral Board under the charge of Carlos Quintero, who will give more details about the strengths of this technological solution within the framework of the Venezuelan electoral system.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Madam President, colleagues, rectors, the commander of the Strategic Command of the Army, members of the National Logistics Committee, members of the political organization joining us today. We welcome you all. I would like also to welcome to the regional electoral directors, the electoral coordinators who are joining us in these video conferences, the electoral experts who are joining us today. For the National Electoral Council and for the electoral branch, this is an important date. This is a date for us to present to the Venezuelans the effort of an intense work of 16 years of accumulated experience of an institution that has provided strength to the democratic institutional character of Venezuela. We're going to speak about the new automated electoral system of Venezuela, the guarantees and the audits that count on the participation of the political organizations and dear experts and colleagues who are going to join us here. We will speak about the audits, the construction of the electoral branch in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The organization of the electoral processes is the competence of an autonomous public branch of power that is set forth in the Constitution of 1999, in which a new model of republic was established, replacing the classical structure of 3 branches of power that we had before the Constitution of 1999. A new model of republic in which the electoral branch represents the transformation of the classical representative democracy and its transition into a participatory and protagonist democracy as set forth in the Constitution. Since 2004, the electoral branch defined 3 strategic lines, and that plan was called the Electoral Strategical Plan. One of the main guidelines was to include all the Venezuelans with the age to vote in the electoral roll, to automate the electoral process in each one of its phases and adequate the electoral infrastructure. We can say today to our country and to the Venezuelan state and to the voters that we have reached our purpose, and that the electoral branch will continue to widen the horizon in consolidating these strategic lines to strengthen this right of Venezuelans to express their opinion through the votes. These three vital elements in each electoral process are joined by other factors. This is the core of the elections, the most important element, and in which we have been conducting efforts to render secure the vote is the electoral guarantees, backed by a legal framework and by a constitutional framework. The design of the new voting machine, we can say, is the outcome of an accumulation of knowledge that the electoral branch has obtained in the last 20 years. It's an effort conducted to catch up with technology, to evolve, as we have been doing in the last 20 years. This effort reflected in this new automated system is an outcome of the previous administration and of the current administration efforts to make this project a reality. In March 2019, the CNE conducted an analysis of the technology inventory to see the status of all of its components, and the idea was to have an update of all the technical elements in order to be able to plan the decision-making in an assertive manner to be prepared for the electoral processes ahead for the year 2020, specifically on December the 6th. We can see that in our inventories, we had 40,009 voting machines approximately, machines that were purchased in 2007, 2009, and 2011. From the analysis conducted, 73% of the machines were perfectly operative and some others were not operative. But it was clear that these machines were outdated. So it was necessary for us to redesign a new electoral solution to adapt to the needs of our country, of our electoral system. Thus, we are here today presenting this new voting machine, a modern machine with essential technical elements adapted to our electronic vote system, with an integration to the integral authentication device. The main characteristics of this machine are, first, the strength. This machine has been designed in order to be able to resist all the processes that this voting machine has to go through: the storage, the production, the deployment to the states, the operation in the voting centers. So a second characteristic, a second technical characteristic, is that this equipment, this piece of equipment, was designed with a modular approach to render its maintenance easier. And another element, and it's the most important characteristic, is that we included a lithium battery that gives it an autonomy of 10 hours. This has been certified in each one of the processes we have conducted of certification. An open architecture that is part of the experience we have accumulated to avoid us from being dependent of suppliers, so that this technology can allow us to find the components in the national and international markets without having to depend on suppliers. Another characteristic to highlight is the scalability. In order to extend its lifespan, we can see that this machine has important features with regards to its motherboard, the hard disk. This is a capacitive LSD screen, state-of-the-art technology, able to withstand all the processes that is going to be used for. The development of this project, of this new voting machine, involved the design of 2 prototypes that underwent certification tests. It underwent a certification test to each one of the components and the certification of the machine. And the third was the certification of the battery, the test of functionality, and the applications related to the voting machine, and the transmission test also to certify each one of the components. So we can see a first prototype. That made us carry out analysis, important analysis for the people of Venezuela to understand that this machine was designed in Venezuela by a Venezuelan team of technicians, thanks to the experience accumulated by the electoral branch in the last 20 years, since we started this long way in 2004. The technology committee carried out the certification test of this prototype, and we obtained results. So, and we continue to optimize the electronic system that feeds all the components of the voting machine, improving the place where the thermal paper is stored, and improve the details of design, and optimize all the electronic components of the machine, and improve several of the design aspects to optimize the performance, the global performance of the machine, and have a better product. So as a result of each process of certification, a report of recommendation was written to the National Electoral Council that made us generate a second prototype that also underwent a certification process until reaching a machine that could meet the requirements necessary to be used in an electoral process. That was the path that we went through to get to this final machine that you are seeing here, a strong machine that clearly goes beyond the machines we had in the past, which is going to feel the voters confident, and they will be able to interact with a reliable machine. In March of this year, we lived a complex situation. We experienced a loss of our machines, loss of our technological equipment in a fire that took place in Mariches. So we had to design a new device for integral authentication to be integrated to this machine. Immediately, the technological committee started a design, and to guarantee that this device could optimize when compared to the previous device. The device for integral authentication is a component integrated to the voting machine, and its main function is to guarantee the authentication of the voter before the electoral process through the validation of the information contained in the ID card. Once the ID is validated, the voter is authorized to vote and cast his or her vote in a safe manner. So among the main characteristics of this device, we have the strength, the high resistance of its keyboard, state-of-the-art last generation scanner, and a device, and also a modern architecture of devices that are integrated to the machine with open technology. With USB ports, we can combine other components and to have autonomy in the event there's a power shortage, for example. So about the software of the voting machine, it's important to highlight the following aspects. This software is part of this accumulation of knowledge we have gotten in the last 16 years. It's here when we assume the challenge of designing a new voting software and a new aggregation software with characteristics that could guarantee the secrecy of the vote and the guarantees established in the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It's a software based on the concept of electoral vote with improvements to guarantee that voters can cast their votes smoothly and comply with the principles established in the Constitution and in the electoral laws. This machine improves the voting experience with, if we compare it to the previous machines. With the previous machines, voters took more time and had to go through a previous stage and then to the machine. But now this machine is simpler. The voter can go in front of the machine and vote directly. So the times for voting are inferior to 20 seconds. So in times of pandemic, we are providing an electoral solution to the voters so that they can take the least time possible and cast their vote. It is guaranteed as well the secrecy of the vote, reinforcing in a technical manner all the rights. And it's also guaranteed the principle of one voter, one vote. We changed the infrastructure of authentication to prevent identity theft from happening. We guarantee the security in the protection of information, biometric authentication, automated process, safe transmission of data, auditable software in each one of its modules, and the most important thing, we guarantee the change of protection to each one of the political organizations, because each political organization has a representative with an electronic signature that is introduced when the audits take place. As we can see, the voter can easily interact with the machine, selecting, as we can see, for example, the card of the party of their preference. Then there is a menu of the option he can select from. If he agree with the option, votes. He can combine representatives from one list with another list, and finally vote. It's very simple. The design of the aggregation software is a technology solution, an integral or comprehensive technological solution for the totalization of votes and the awarding of the offices. So there's transparency and integrity of information. There's the validity and availability of the results, efficiency, simplicity, and the whole process of awarding of the offices is easy. There is auditable software in each one of its stages, security of information, and as in every audit, the political organizations can be quiet about this solution underwent technical and scientific tests following the protocols established by more than 60 technicians that worked tirelessly to have a strong solution now. There were certification tests to carry out functional and non-functional tests to identify the correct functioning of the applications related to the infrastructure of the national aggregation centers. And summarizing, the result of this test was to render automated the deployment of the element of this platform and guarantee the contingency mechanism of with regards to the application databases to test the functionalities of the voting machines and the new elements of contingency, to carry out transmission through different means to be able to certify their correct functioning, validate the information transmitted from the voting machine to the national aggregation system centers to guarantee the integrity of information at all times, so that the data that is transmitted cannot be modified.
The National Electoral Council will execute for the elections of the National Assembly of 2020, 16 audits, 12 of them in the preparatory stage of the electoral process. One of them will be made on the day of the elections, where we're going to audit 52% of the electoral stations with the participation of voters, witnesses of political organizations and witnesses, where they will prove that the Scrutiny Act corresponds to the voting receipts that are in the ballot box, and that will be certified by the CNE when it publishes the results on the elections. Besides, we make 3 audits after the electoral process. It is important to explain the most important audits that we carry out in the electoral process. On Monday 12, we will begin the software audit until October the 23rd. It is important to say that we have increased the auditing time. Audits that used to be made in 3 days will now be done in 15 days because it's a new solution. So we must take all the time that is necessary to be able to make these audits. As we know, this voting machine audit is the one that validates the electors to register the votes and to perform the scrutinizing process and the data transmission results. The scope of this audit, the revision of the hardware of the machine, the application of functional tests in a structured manner to see the proper functioning of the software, and the generation of the digital signatures once each one of these components are audited. We can now take a look at a scheme that will show us clearly at all times if the certification and the reliable chain can be proved on the software. Once it is audited, it is ciphered, and we generate again digital signatures so that the political organizations in the production process can be able to prove that the process that was audited was the one that is being charged. One important element on the secrecy of the vote is that the political organizations that participate in the audits will introduce, each one of them, a shared password as well as the CNE. All these passwords will generate a ciphering of the machines. What does this mean? That the only way to cipher a machine is for all political organizations and the CNE to agree on doing that. That will be the absolute guarantee that will secure this voting process. Likewise, we make an audit of the electoral data. The audit of the database will be made jointly with the specialist technicians of the political organizations to verify that there is no duplicity in the database. This audit will allow us afterwards to generate the digital signatures on all of the files that are being audited in such a way that we will guarantee once again the reliability chain. Regarding the audit itself of the totalization software, we will audit the applications that form part of the totalization system to prove the proper functioning of the whole information flow that begins from the reception of the Scrutiny Acts transmitted by the voting machine, and to validate that the totalization process is an integral process. The functioning of the totalization system is based in all aspects that correspond to the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and the electoral law, and the special rule that will guide this electoral process. So the main processes that we audit in the software, in the totalization software, is the whole process: the reception of the Scrutiny Acts, the totalization, the allocation of the positions, the legal documents for the positions, and the consultation of all the results. We can also add the reliability chain as a guarantee for the political organizations. We have the production audit of the machines. That is the last link of the chain that has to do with the audits, where the political organizations can prove that all the things that were audited is being configured in the machines. The main goal is to certify by the technicians of the political organizations the proper configurations of the machines as the result of the voting process. The protocol in this audit is selected at 0.3% in the machines per every state. There are technical protocols that are applied to prove or to certify the data, to certify that the configuration data that were audited are the ones that are being loaded in the machine, and that the software that was audited is the one being loaded in the machine, in such a way that that audit will provide us or will secure the process. On Sunday, before the event, we perform a pre-dispatch audit. The parties will choose an at random sample of 0.5% in the machine. This audit is done by professors that are experts of the Central University of Venezuela. The purpose of this audit, once the production process is ended, is to replicate all the stages of the voting system, of the voting process, for the proper integrity of the same. The simulation of all the stages of the electoral process. One of those stages is to prove the whole process of installation of the machine, the acts in order to show that there is no duplicity. We simulate the whole voting process, the whole scrutiny process, the whole transmission process, the whole totalization process, and then we match the scrutiny acts versus the voting receipts and versus the results that are totalized in the National Totalization Center. With those audits, the political organizations can be completely certain that the machines in every state will work properly on the elections day. One last audit that is quite significant among the 16 audits that we have is the audit of the electoral data. Once we make the electoral process, we deploy all the machines and we send them to Caracas, to our warehouses. We perform a technical process to deploy all the fingerprints of the voters who participated, and we make an audit of the fingerprints to verify if there was or if there wasn't an usurpation of identity. So far, 99.78% has been effective. So this means that those who manifest their will when they cast their votes are people who have a fingerprint that has been registered, and those fingerprints that will be registered will be audited with the database that was applied in phase number 1. Let us now talk, as one last aspect, about the scheme of audits during the pandemic. The National Electoral Council has developed a biosecurity plan that was approved. We have developed throughout all the facilities where we are developing the electoral project, the warehouses where the machines are stored and where we are assembling the equipment in the main headquarters and in the audits, we're going to implement during this pandemic a state-of-the-art design for the technical audits in the Venezuelan electoral system, for it to allow international organizations who want to accompany us but cannot come because of the pandemic. There won't be any excuse for them for not to participate. The same thing will happen with national organizations. Political organizations here will participate on an in-person modality. This new scenario for the audits will count with a whole staff with moderators, translators, cameramen, technicians, specialists, so that we are able to, in a modern manner, to demonstrate to our partners here in our video conference, for them to see the code and for them to interact with their technicians, for them to be able to ask technical questions or any doubts that they might have. This will be a very novel scheme that will allow in real time for other people to see what the technicians are doing here in person. For that purpose, the National Electoral Council developed special rulings, special standards that will be complied by all the participants. Finally, dear friends, in the year 2004, we developed an electronic process incorporating the automation of the voting process. As of that year, we built a guaranteed system that has allowed to guarantee the reliability of the vote as a loyal expression of the will of Venezuelan people. In 2012, Venezuela was the leader in the electronic systems with the incorporation of the biometrics authentication system during the voting acts to guarantee a real vote. And we are still adding other electoral guarantees. Today, in 2020, the Electoral Power has made a re-engineering of the Venezuelan electoral system with the development of a modern machine with state-of-the-art technology that will allow a better interaction between the voter and the system. We also developed a voting system, thus broadening the electoral guarantees that we have strengthened during the last 16 years. Lately, dear ladies and gentlemen, and dear friends, the Electoral Power will continue to work together, hand in hand with the Venezuelan people to guarantee their will and their right to express in a free, secure, sovereign, and independent way to guarantee the peace that we all deserve. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, dear friends.
Now, as part of the presentation of a new technological solution towards the parliamentary elections of December the 6th, we'll invite you to join us to see how the electoral process is going to take place in the so-called electoral horseshoe, in compliance with the biosecurity measures within the framework of the biosecurity plan prepared by the Electoral Council. The only document that is valid to vote in the elections on December the 6th is the Venezuelan identity card, even if it's expired. At the entrance of each polling station, a list of the voters who can cast their vote and the number of polling stations authorized in the polling station is published. There, the voters can locate their corresponding polling station according to the final number of their identity card. Upon arriving at the polling station, the voter goes to the identification station, where he or she places his or her identification in the card holder, and the officer in charge transcribes the identification number and scans the voter's fingerprint, always respecting the social distancing measures to guarantee the protection and the safety of the voters and of the officers of the polling station. All the polling stations are well identified and have signals related to the protection of health and social distancing. Then the presiding officer of the polling station asks the voter if he or she knows how to vote. If the answer is yes, the voter walks directly in front of the voting machine. If he or she answers no, the presiding officer will explain the two options he or she has for voting: the select all option or the alternate option, and the number of votes he or she must cast. Before the voting procedure, the presiding officer sanitizes the hands of the voter using alcohol and takes him or her to the voting machine. Each voter has 3 minutes to cast his or her vote, touching the organization card on the screen according to his or her preference. On the right side of the screen, the selection made by the voter appears, and in the middle is the word vote. Once the vote has been cast, the machine prints the vote received that is verified by the voter, who folds it and deposits it in the ballot box. Finally, the voter goes to the station where the voting notebook is located, places the ID card once again in the ID holder so that the polling officer who handles the notebook can see the number and locate the page and the line so that the voter can sign and stamp his fingerprint to successfully finish the voting procedure. All the instruments that are being used in this table have undergone a process of sanitation and cleaning. Well, and after seeing this drill of the voting procedure adjusted to the strategic plan of biosecurity, bearing in mind the protection of the Venezuelan people, we would like to thank, on behalf of the President of the National Electoral Council, the rectors that are part of the electoral branch, to you who have joined us remotely and presentially. Honorable Jorge Alberto Montserrat, Minister for Foreign Relations, and other members of the Executive Cabinet. General-in-Chief Vladimir Padrino Lopez, Minister of People's Power for Defense. Admiral-in-Chief Remigio Ceballos, Operational Commander of the National Venezuelan Armed Forces. Rector Leonardo Morales Poleo, Vice President of the Electoral Branch. Rector Tania Amelio Cardiet. Rector Gladys Gutierrez. Rector Jose Luis Gutierrez Parra. We would like to also thank the presence of the alternate rectors incorporated to the subordinate bodies of the electoral branch. This act has counted on the presence of the representative of the political organizations and the indigenous people. Your Excellencies, ambassadors and chefs d'affaires, and representatives of international organizations and members of the diplomatic corps accredited before the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Heads of missions of 60 embassies, of more than 60 embassies of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Presidents of institutions of the Venezuelan state who also take part in this electoral process to elect the deputies to the National Assembly. Members of the media, national media and international media, honorable missions and electoral experts of the world, and the Electoral Council of Experts of the Americas, directors of the electoral branch, workers of the electoral branch who are also connected to this transmission from the different offices of the National Electoral Council in Venezuela, voters who will participate in this historic electoral process to take place on December the 6th, 2020. To all of you, thank you very much. Thank you for your participation.